Discovery One. Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey gave audiences a minimalist, eerily realistic vision of deep space travel controlled by an all-seeing artificial intelligence. Discovery One serves as the primary spacecraft on a nuclear-powered mission from Earth to Jupiter, with every system managed by the HAL 9000 computer. The ship's long spine features a rotating crew section and forward command module, visually separating fragile human habitats from the industrial engine section. This form-follows-function approach makes it feel like something aerospace engineers might actually build, which is why it regularly appears on lists of the most iconic spaceships in science fiction. HAL's complete control over life support and navigation turns the vessel itself into an extension of the AI's body, creating the film's central tension once the computer begins to malfunction. The austere white interiors and sparse instrumentation emphasize a clinical, dehumanized environment where humans become guests in their own machine. Discovery One became iconic because it rejects the fantasy of space travel as adventure and instead presents it as sterile, calculated, and potentially terrifying. This restrained design helped establish a template for hard science fiction that filmmakers continue to reference decades later, proving that realistic engineering can be just as visually memorable as fantasy designs. Endurance. Christopher Nolan's Interstellar presents a spacecraft that fuses NASA-inspired realism with striking visual geometry. The Endurance is a modular ring of connected habitats and modules, arranged in a circular structure that generates artificial gravity through rotation. As a long-duration exploration vessel tasked with traveling through a wormhole to find habitable worlds, its design balances rugged utility with fragile hope. The segmented ring allows modules to be detached or reconfigured, reinforcing the idea that this is a mission-built machine rather than a sleek fantasy starship. Endurance's depiction aligns closely with real aerospace concepts, using rotating structures to simulate gravity and relying on modular components that actual space agencies have considered for decades. This grounded approach helps it resonate with audiences who appreciate scientifically plausible science fiction. The spinning ring becomes a constant visual reminder that even survival in space depends on careful manipulation of physics. Endurance achieved iconic status by sitting between realism and spectacle, demonstrating how thoughtful engineering can create a memorable silhouette that audiences immediately associate with the film's themes of time, sacrifice, and human survival. Nostromo. Ridley Scott's Alien introduced a grimy space truck whose Gothic meets industrial design redefined what science fiction ships could look like. The USCSS Nostromo is a tug ship that tows a massive refinery platform for the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, grounding the movie in blue-collar commercial space work rather than heroic exploration. The ship's name was changed from Leviathan in early drafts to Nostromo, referencing Joseph Conrad's 1904 novel and signaling the film's interest in morally ambiguous corporate frontiers. Concept designer Ron Cobb approached the design as a frustrated engineer, working out fuel tolerances, centers of gravity, engines, and radiation shielding before reshaping those ideas into cinematic form. Cobb and fellow artist Chris Foss spent months producing designs, with Foss focusing on exteriors and Cobb on interiors, before visual effects supervisor Brian Johnson's team consolidated concepts into the final ship. The principal filming miniature was an 11-foot hero model built at Bray Studios by model makers including Ron Hone, Bill Pearson, Simon Deering, and Martin Bauer. Scott pushed for the Nostromo and its attached refinery to feel like a cross between a tramp steamer and a cathedral, leading to towering, almost Gothic silhouettes on the refinery towers. The ship's cramped, Art Deco-influenced interiors and World War II bomber vibe emphasize that this future is rusty, noisy, and dangerous, a radical departure from the clean optimism of earlier science fiction. Alien won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, with the Nostromo's detailed miniature work cited alongside the creature effects as a key factor in that recognition. This design became iconic by shifting science fiction away from pristine, military-style ships toward a used future where space is just another workplace, influencing everything from video games to later space horror films and establishing the haunted house in space aesthetic. Heighliner. Denis Villeneuve's Dune from 2021 turns interstellar transport into a colossal, monolithic object that feels more like a mobile cathedral than a conventional ship. Highliners are massive transport ships operated by the Spacing Guild, capable of folding space to instantly move fleets and cargo between star systems, making them the economic backbone of the Dune universe. Visually, the film presents these vessels as vast, cylindrical, or ring-like megastructures, with minimal surface ornamentation, emphasizing planetary scale and religious awe, rather than conventional aerodynamics. Their relative lack of visible thrusters or windows makes them feel alien and unknowable, reinforcing the idea that guild navigation is a mysterious, quasi-mystical art. The Heighliner often frames other ships within its cavernous interior, using scale to communicate political power and dependence on guild travel. These designs became iconic because they feel genuinely beyond human scale, turning transportation infrastructure into an almost religious icon that audiences had never seen executed at this level of visual grandeur. Their stark, monumental shapes contrast sharply with the more detailed, kit-bashed look of other famous ships, demonstrating how minimalist, awe-inspiring design can achieve memorable status in science fiction cinema. USS Enterprise. The movie-era redesign of the USS Enterprise transformed a television icon into a big-screen spectacle that became the definitive, heroic starship. The Enterprise's basic silhouette of saucer section, secondary hull, and twin nacelles remains consistent across film iterations, making it instantly identifiable even in silhouette. Refit versions in the films introduce more paneling, hull detail, and refined proportions, adapting the television design to hold up on theater screens and in cinematic close-ups. The Enterprise is repeatedly framed as a character, rather than a mere vehicle, with bridge and engine room sets designed to be revisited throughout the films, reinforcing emotional attachment. Its clean, logical layout contrasts with the grime of other ships, reflecting Star Trek's optimistic vision of a well-run, quasi-military, exploratory fleet. The Enterprise achieved iconic status by being arguably the only spaceship that rivals other legendary designs in instant mainstream recognizability across generations. Its balance of functional-looking components and elegant lines has influenced countless later starship designs, from direct homage to outright imitation, cementing its place at the center of discussions about science fiction spacecraft design and making it a cultural touchstone that transcends the franchise itself. Millennium Falcon. Han Solo's ship takes the idea of a flying saucer and transforms it into the most beloved hunk of junk in cinema history. The Millennium Falcon debuted in Star Wars: A New Hope, which premiered on May 25, 1977, and quickly became one of the most recognizable starships in pop culture. Colin Cantwell's original long, linear design for the pirate ship evolved into what became the Blockade Runner, forcing the team to redesign the Falcon so it wouldn't resemble the Eagle transporter from the television show Space, 1999. Concept artist Ralph McQuarrie produced early spaceship ideas, while model maker Joe Johnston was given about 4 weeks to redesign the Falcon after George Lucas requested something more like a flying saucer. Johnston has likened the Falcon's shape to a hamburger with an olive on the side, and has also recalled glancing at a stack of dirty dishes in his apartment as inspiration for the stacked disc silhouette. To avoid a generic saucer, Johnston added an offset cockpit, forward cargo mandibles, and a recessed rear engine trench, creating the Falcon's distinctive asymmetry. The first 5-foot miniature, built in 1976 through 77, used extensive kit bashing, with parts scavenged from airplane and race car model kits, including high-performance cars like Ferrari and McLaren, to add surface detail. Art director Roger Christian further sold the fastest hunk of junk concept by adding mismatched panels, exposed piping, oil drips, and other junkyard details inspired by World War II aircraft and worn-out race cars. The Millennium Falcon became iconic because it looks fast, dangerous, and barely held together, an anti-Enterprise that still feels completely believable as a working vessel. Its asymmetry, visible guts, and storied redesign process have turned it into a case study in how production constraints and last-minute problem-solving can accidentally create a design that defines science fiction cinema for generations. Serenity. Joss Whedon's Firefly series and its feature film gave audiences a scrappy Firefly-class transport whose glowing tail and cobbled-together look made working-class space travel feel personal. The ship's nickname comes from its Firefly-like glowing engine section, which pulses and flares when the ship accelerates, turning propulsion into a literal visual signature that makes it instantly recognizable. In the movie, Serenity is framed as a worn, underarmed freighter that emphasizes evasion and clever piloting over raw firepower. The design features a bulky, almost insectoid body with movable wings, giving it personality while still reading as a functional cargo hauler. Interior sets are arranged to reinforce the sense of a found family home, from the kitchen to the cargo bay, making the ship feel lived in and emotionally significant rather than purely mechanical. Serenity achieved iconic status by combining the used future aesthetic of other famous ships with a more intimate family home vibe, which is why fans talk about it almost as another member of the cast. Its bioluminescent tail and bug-like profile make it instantly identifiable even for viewers who only saw the film, demonstrating how a strong visual signature and emotional connection can elevate a design to beloved status within science fiction culture. By the way, if you're enjoying this type of content, I create videos like this regularly. Subscribing would really help me out. Arrival shells. The alien vessels in Denis Villeneuve's Arrival are enigmatic, hovering shells that reject usual science fiction decoration in favor of pure, unsettling simplicity. The 12 massive, oblong craft hover just above different locations around Earth, their dark, stone-like surfaces giving them the appearance of monolithic artifacts rather than vehicles. The ship's interiors feature a gravity-shifted observation chamber and a foggy interface wall, visually reinforcing the film's themes of nonlinear perception and linguistic estrangement. The absence of visible engines, windows, or weapons makes the ships feel benevolent yet unknowable, defying human expectations of how technology should look. Their placement around the globe, and the fact that they choose where to appear, turns the entire planet into a stage for first contact, using ship design as a narrative device. These shells became iconic by demonstrating that a memorable spaceship doesn't need visible guns or thrusters, just a strong, thematically resonant visual idea that serves the story. Their quiet, almost religious presence offers a different flavor of awe compared to militarized designs, proving that restraint and mystery can be just as memorable as spectacle in creating an unforgettable science fiction image. Elysium Station. Neil Blomkamp's 2013 film presents an orbiting habitat that turns social commentary into literal geometry visible from space. The structure is a Stanford torus-style ring with an open interior, where gravity is generated by rotation and the inner surface holds lush landscapes and mansions. In contrast to the polluted, overpopulated Earth below, the clean, sunlit vistas of the station immediately communicate class division purely through set and ship design. The structure functions as both a setting and a character goal, with reaching Elysium being the central objective, so every glimpse of the ring reinforces what's at stake in the narrative. The design taps into real-world NASA concepts for rotating habitats, grounding its utopian look in plausible engineering principles, even as the film exaggerates scale for dramatic impact. This station became iconic by showing how a spaceship or space habitat can embody an entire film's social message at a glance, with its pristine, curved surface representing inequality in its most literal architectural form. By marrying speculative engineering with sharp class commentary, it stands out from more generic future cities in orbit and demonstrates the power of thoughtful design to create immediate visual storytelling. City destroyers. Roland Emmerich's Independence Day turned the stereotypical flying saucer into continent-sized symbols of annihilation that redefined alien invasion imagery. These disc-shaped alien ships hover directly over major cities, visually echoing classic flying saucers but scaled up to apocalyptic proportions that dwarfed skyscrapers. Their underbellies open to reveal massive energy weapons that carve vertical beams of destruction through buildings, creating iconic shots that defined 1990s disaster cinema. The design blends smooth, almost Art Deco curves with intricate underside detailing, making them both simple to read in wide shots and rich in close-up texture. The city destroyers and their mothership became instantly recognizable marketing images, appearing on posters, trailers, and promotional materials worldwide. These ships became iconic by taking the spaceship over landmark image to its logical extreme, creating shots that are still referenced and parodied today. Their massive scale and memorable destruction sequences help cement Independence Day as the template for modern alien invasion blockbusters, proving that sometimes bigger really does create a more lasting cultural impact. Mars Attacks. Tim Burton's Mars Attacks resurrects retro flying saucers and weaponizes their campiness for chaotic destruction that both honors and mocks the genre. The design intentionally echoes 1950s B-movie saucers, aligning with the film's satire of Cold War alien invasion tropes and vintage science fiction aesthetics. The ships unleash colorful, stylized energy weapons that match the movie's exaggerated comic book violence and over-the-top Martian designs. Their simple, instantly readable silhouettes make them effective in wide, effects-heavy destruction sequences where visual clarity is crucial for comedic timing. These saucers became iconic by showing how leaning into cliché can still produce a memorable design if the execution and context are strong enough. They act as a humorous counterpoint to deadly serious invasion ships in other films, proving that parody vessels can be just as culturally memorable as their straight-faced counterparts when backed by strong visual identity, deliberate stylization, and Burton's distinctive directorial voice. Spaceball One. Mel Brooks's Spaceballs delivers a joke so massive it literally transforms into a giant maid with a vacuum cleaner attachment. The ship starts as an absurdly long, over-detailed mega-vessel that mocks the increasing size and complexity of science fiction warships like Star Destroyers from other franchises. Its famous transformation into Mega Maid, complete with a vacuum nozzle designed to suck atmosphere from an entire planet, lampoons the concept of superweapons and planet killers that had become staples of space opera cinema. The exaggerated detailing and seemingly endless corridors poke fun at the seriousness with which other franchises treat their capital ships and military vessels. Spaceball One became iconic by proving that parody ships can be just as memorable as serious designs, especially when they cleverly exaggerate existing trends to absurd extremes. Its ludicrous length, ridiculous transformations, and self-aware humor acknowledge how devoted science fiction fandom can be, demonstrating that iconic status isn't limited to dramatic designs, and that comedy can create just as lasting an impression on audiences. Event Horizon. Paul W.S. Anderson's Event Horizon turns faster-than-light travel into a vessel that looks like a literal haunted cathedral floating through space. The experimental starship features a gravity drive core sitting in a long, cathedral-like central corridor that visually echoes Gothic architecture and religious imagery. Its spiked, cruciform silhouette and ribbed interior passageways blend industrial science fiction with horror design elements, setting an ominous tone before anything supernatural occurs in the narrative. The gravity drive's rotating rings and mirrored core create one of the era's most memorable depictions of dangerous, occult-feeling technology that seems to bridge science and dark mysticism. The ship's layout, with its remote bridge, long access tunnel, and isolated engine room, supports the film's staging of inescapable horror and claustrophobic dread. While not as mainstream as other famous designs, this ship became a cult favorite and iconic within horror science fiction crossover cinema because it fuses spaceship design with horror set logic in ways that were genuinely innovative. Its influence can be seen in later cursed ship stories across games and movies, proving that combining genres in ship design can create something uniquely memorable that resonates with specific audiences. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing so you never miss new content. Thanks for watching.